Did you know this about Paper 1 Question 3 in AQA English Language from 2026 onwards? As you probably know, from 2026 the AQA exams are changing slightly, and Paper 1 Question 3 will now ask you to analyse how structure is used to create a specific effect, mood or atmosphere. For example, fear, danger, threat, mystery, tension. However, recent AQA training, and I later clarified with the brilliant AQA English team, made it clear that it could be more than that. Two other examples that were given were not emotive at all, but were the ideas of contrast and change. Now, this is important because it broadens what you need to prepare for. So instead of just thinking about emotional effects like tension or suspense, you also need to consider other structural effects that could come up in this question. And this does make sense when you think about it. Writers don't just use structure to make us feel scared or excited. They also use it to show differences or to highlight shifts or to create patterns. Now, what does this mean for your revision? Well, you might think about effects in two different categories. First, emotive effects. These are the ones you're probably most familiar with. Think fear, tension, mystery, excitement, unease. These are about how the text makes the reader feel. And second, more broadly, structural effects. And this is where contrast and change come in. Writers might use structure to show the difference between two characters, or to demonstrate how a situation changes over time. We don't know yet what this kind of question will look like, but here's the really important bit that AQA told me directly. The effect will be obvious in the text. You won't be hunting for some obscure literary concept. If the question asks you about change, there will be clear evidence of change in the extract. If it asks about contrast, the contrasts will be there, clear to see. Now, this actually makes the question easier in some ways because you know what you're looking for. No more wondering what effect should I write about, the question tells you. So let's look at an example, and it's based on the extract from my practice papers guide. You can download the extract for free through following the links in the description, and I actually used this extract in the last video on the simple way to analyze structure. So hopefully, you'll be familiar with it. So you could have a question that says something like this. How does the writer use structure to show the change in the narrator's experience during the walk across the causeway? Or it could be like this. How does the writer use structure to highlight the contrast between the narrator's expectations and the reality of the walk across the causeway? How should we approach these kinds of questions? Well, one idea is to look for the structural features in the text and see if you can link them to what the question is asking. Let's focus on this change question for our example. Remember, structure is about the order things take place in, how things shift and change and move. So, look at the opening sentence. For a short time, I walked slowly on, determined to stick to my path. In this opening sentence, there's a sense of calm and control. The narrator feels reasonably confident and logical in their approach. But that changes almost immediately, and remember, change is the key thing in our question here, isn't it? We then read, it began to dawn on me that I should as likely as not become very quickly lost. Now here's our first clear structural shift, which we can link to change, a change from determination to uncertainty. This is a change in the narrator's experience. He moves from feeling capable to feeling vulnerable. And this is what structure is all about, tracking how things shift, move, or evolve across a text. So linking that to the question, we might explore how the writer uses this early shift, this early change, to initiate the narrator's changing experience, moving from a mindset of clarity and control to one of fear and confusion. Structurally, placing this change right at the very start sets up a clear trajectory. The narrator begins in control, but that control is rapidly undermined. It signals to the reader that this walk is not just a physical journey, but one filled with emotional and psychological change. His thoughts, feelings, and sense of reality are all altered as the extract progresses. Now then we reach a brief structural pause when the narrator hears the sound of the trap and believes Keckwick is coming. It says, so Keckwick was unperturbed by the mist. And at this point, there's a clear change in the narrator's experience again. It shifts from fear to a moment of hope. It changes from fear to a moment of hope. But that doesn't last. The moment quickly changes again as he realizes the sound is coming from the wrong direction and something's not right. What I heard next chilled and horrified me, we read. And this is another key structural shift and change. This time it's even more extreme. The narrator's experience changes from hope to helpless terror. So by the time we reach the end of the extract, we see multiple clear changes in the narrator's experience, from determined to uncertain to afraid to briefly hopeful and then to utterly traumatized, and the final lines reflect that, shuddering at the dreadful thoughts racing through my mind. Even though the narrator physically makes it back to the house, the structure shows us that his emotional state has changed completely. He's not the same person he was at the start of the walk. So once you start thinking in those terms, you're doing exactly what this new version of Paper 1 Question 3 is asking for. If you spot a structural feature but can't link it to what the question is asking, don't write about it. And remember, AQA will tell you what effect to focus on in this question. So it could be change or contrast, it could be an emotive effect, fear, mystery, tension. Your job is to track that effect across the structure of the whole source. We don't know every effect this question might ask of you, but we do know this: it's not only going to be emotive, it could be something else as well. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and I've got videos on all of the new 2026 onwards questions, so do check them out.